Guys, let's go ahead and get started. Maybe we can get you out a little bit early tonight. We don't have quite as big a group as normal, but it looks like we're still going to have people joining in. So, Caitlin, I just saw your email because I know we've been emailing back and forth. Friday at 5 is perfect. I'll send you a Zoom link for that. And I don't see, okay, yeah, I see some of you are having camera issues. I understand. My computer's been acting wonky all day. So if it suddenly goes black and you don't see me anymore, just know that nothing tragic happened. I'm here. It's just my computer has been that crazy. So just real quickly, a couple of announcements. We are very, very excited that our programs here at LSUS are continuing to grow and grow significantly. Our MBA program now is up to 3,700 students. Our MHA program is approaching 800 students. And then our MEDL and MEDCI, while they are still, considerably smaller, they are also growing. So it looks like we're going to top out around 200 this year for MEDL and probably about 175 for MEDCI. So as you may or may not know, not only am I an adjunct faculty, but I work as the graduate coordinator and advisor. And basically I have every program other than the MBA. So I coordinate for the MHA, MEDCI, MEDL, MBA, doctoral program. Somebody here. There we go. Anyway, let me start over because I have to do my list in order because I forget somebody. It's MHA, MEDL, MEDCI, MPH, the Masters of Public Health, the Masters of Science in Counseling, the Specialist in School Psychology, and the doctoral program. So my numbers are now approaching about 1,400 to 1,500 students that I advise. So our college dean has been very proactive. She's a very progressive person, and she saw that we were going to have some needs. So she's actually hired 2 new people that are coming on board to help us out. So probably within the next week or two, the new coordinator is taking over the MEDCI and the MEDL program. Her name's Monica Pels. And like I said, she's going to do basically what I've always done, which is the coordination of the program, working with Dr. Perry as the program director, but she'll also be your advisor. So we've already made some transitions. So brand new students are, working with her, and she's awesome. You guys will love her. So just know that I'll still see you maybe in some classes, but I won't be advising any of you guys anymore. So yeah, I'm sad, but I'm also relieved because I'm really tired of working 12 and 15-hour days trying to do everything that I'm responsible for. The other big news is that, and again, I don't think this part will affect you, but just so you know, right now, the College of Business Education and Human Development contains approximately 76% of the entire university's enrollment, and the big bulk of that is graduate students. So, while our college dean, she is amazing. She's a superwoman. I don't know how she does all that she does, but, it's really becoming somewhat unmanageable for her, to do everything she needs to do for all the programs. So on March the 8th, our long-range planning committee is voting on a proposal to split the colleges. And so all that means is that when we then, instead of being the College of Business Education and Human Development, we'll be 2 separate colleges, the College of Business and then the College of Education and Human Development. And we'll be getting a new dean for the College of Education and Human Development. And so there's just some strategic kind of changes. Like I said, I don't think it'll affect y'all, except maybe you'll get a little bit better or personalized customer service for those of us that work in those administrative roles, because yeah, it's getting a little hard for us to manage and keep up because the numbers are so massive. So it's going to get better, but just wanted you to know because that's sort of I wouldn't say scuttlebutt, but that's just sort of the big topics going on around here right now. So without further ado, let's start talking about what we're going to do, and then I'll get into the assignments and announcements kind of towards the end, if you guys don't mind. So let me switch over. Do you guys have any burning questions, though, before we move forward? Okay, let me share my screen. And hopefully you see this very brightly colored PowerPoint. I needed this today, And if my computer's been wonky, nothing's working. Okay, so we have spent 6 weeks learning about professional learning communities. So I'm not going to walk you through all of these elements and pieces because you've done that. But as you're preparing to do your PLC plan, your SMART goals, and then of course your reflective response, those are all 3 due this week by Sunday. And then as you're preparing to do your final, I just kind of pulled all of this back together. So hopefully this is just a reminder of what we've learned. I would also encourage you, if you are in the EDL program and you're going to be taking the SLLA or another state principal certification test, you really need to keep this stuff and archive it because you're going to need it to study for that exam. So with that being said, as soon as the course closes and I post grade, you will no longer be able to access Moodle to these previous courses. So if you feel like, just as a safeguard, I would encourage you, any resources that are in there that you want, go ahead and download them and pull them out. And I would always keep a copy of my syllabus. So like, let's say you decide to go for a doctorate or something, you may need that, or another master's degree or whatever on down the road. So we know what a professional learning community is. These are the hallmarks of those that are effective. If you like graphic organizers like I do, this is just obviously one that a group put together, just the bubble map. So what does that look like? These are the important pieces. And I'll remind you that if you're part of a professional learning community, it's been so interesting to hear back from you guys. Some of you are in some great PLCs that could be exemplars, and some of you are in PLCs that call themselves a PLC, but they're not in reality. But an effective, efficient PLC that is going to affect student achievement and focuses on student learning, teacher learning, and best practices has these hallmarks in it. Okay, so if there's one of these missing, then you probably can't call yourself effective. And based on just my past experience and the work that I've done, there's probably, oh gosh, there could be all of them, but most often where I see schools really struggle is with the learning and listening part. They do okay with the learning, but they don't really ever do the listening piece. And remember, we talked last week about the differences between discourse and discussion. Also, too, there's not usually a good communication plan. And communication coming out of a PLC should be both vertical and horizontal. And what I mean by that is there has to be consistent communication between the members, but there also has to be consistent communication, messaging, and understanding with campus administration, with the grade level below, or the feeder content, or the grade level or feeder content above. So for example, let's pick on high school. Geometry is typically taught usually in the 10th grade. Most students take Algebra 1 before that, and then if they need a third math, they can be going into maybe Algebra 2, or some people put them in trigonometry, whatever. But if I'm in that geometry PLC in 10th grade, my communication is not just with the geometry teachers. I also need to be talking with and having at least occasional planning PLCs with the algebra teachers who are sending me those students, and then the teachers that the students will go into next. So in this scenario, let's say Algebra 2. So you have to have that vertical as well as horizontal communication between your stakeholders. Really, really important. Another area that I think we don't do as well as we should is reflection. We all know as teachers that when we're working with students, there has to be time for students to really internalize what they're learning. In fact, I had this discussion today with our dean. With the new coordinator, Monica, being here, I know how to teach. I've spent my lifetime teaching. And so I used with her the same kind of model that I would use if I were teaching a whole class. So, I would show her some things and we would do it together. Well, I'd model it for her, then we'd do it together. Then I'd send her off to do it by herself. And my boss kept asking, like, why is she in her office? Why is she not there with you? And I finally had to remind her that, we've got to have give people time for reflection. I can't just be constantly feeding her with information, and if she's not using it and thinking about it and reflecting on that learning, it's not going to stick. And she's like, yeah, you're right, you know, kind of thing. But oftentimes, like I said, when we're working with adult learners, we forget those same principles that we use with students, or K-12 students, apply to the adults. So build in time for reflection, to let people use what they've learned, to dissect it. Don't just think that every moment has to be filled with discourse or dialogue or work. That reflection piece is just as essential. So we know too that there are two huge pieces that have to happen. So we have to have that focus and commitment to student learning. And of course, there has to be that collaborative and accountable culture. Dr. Coulter and I are doing a presentation on Monday for some high school principals in the area. And it's really funny, as I'm looking at this, when he and I were planning it, we're like, okay, what are the two big rock things we want to do? And he's like, well, I think we need to do culture. And I said, well, I think we have to do something around teaching and learning. And so looky there it is. So I may pull this graphic out and add it to my presentation. But very, very important for professional learning. Okay. What are some essential characteristics? Again, it has to be collective inquiry and action-oriented. PLCs don't just meet to talk. They don't meet to plan the next field trip. They don't meet to plan when the Valentine's party is going to be or any of that kind of stuff. An effective PLC is focused on intentional work that is action-oriented. So there's going to be something that comes out of those meetings that is going to absolutely impact the effectiveness of our teaching as well as the effectiveness of our students' learning. So how do we know if they're successful? Well, there should be that commitment to continuous improvement. You know, sometimes it's frustrating, but, you know, it is the way it is, in that part of the work we do when we are, you know, working as teachers or leaders or educators is the fact that our work is never done. It's always going to be a cycle. So you might finish out and close a school year, but in reality, you're also getting ready for the next group of students. So there's never truly a time that we're done. And it's all about results, guys. Good intentions are great, but if they don't yield results, then it's not effective. And I understand the pushback about state testing and accountability. Trust me, I've sung those woes along with you. But at the same time, you know, we can't just use that anecdotal evidence to prove that things are working or not. We actually have to make sure that there are true results for our students. That is that accountability piece. Now, in an ideal world, we're the ones who create those accountability measures. It's not created by some esoteric company that, you know, the state's hired to come in and create your tests and administer them. But at the end of the day, we are in a situation where we have to make sure that we're doing what's necessary for our students. So why? We've talked a lot about these 4 questions. So what do we want students to learn? How do we know if they've learned it? What will they do if they don't learn it? And then what will we do if they already know it? So remember again, this goes back to that RTI model. So we have to be clear about what we want students to learn. How are you going to know if they learned it? So that's that tier 1 good first instruction that should get at least 80. A lot of people say 90% of the students should get it in that good tier 1 first good instruction. Then for those students that don't learn it, we have to decide what we're going to do at that tier 2 level to either remediate or reteach or both. And then for those students who still don't get it, what does tier 3 intervention look like? But the part that is always forgotten is that we also have to be cognizant of and think intentionally about how we're going to work with our students who are at that enrichment level. They may already know 80% of what you're going to be teaching before you even start your first lesson. So we have to push those students, because when we fail to do that, what we end up doing is we do a pretty good job at tier 1 and tier 2. We struggle at tier 3, but over time, all we're doing is pulling everyone to average. And ideally, what a professional learning community should be focused on is that growth added model. So everybody should grow at least a year from where they started. So let's say they come in and it's a third grade class and you've got a student who starts at the kindergarten level. You know, if Tracy were queen of the world, if you move that student a full year of achievement, so they come back and let's say they're at 1.5 grade level or even a 2, they're still not at third grade standard, but you have significantly improved that student's educational achievement and outcome because you've made at least a year and a half to 2 years of growth. The same thing's true though if you have a student who is in third grade chronologically, but they're working at a 5th grade level. It's not okay that they stay at that 5th grade level. They should actually grow at least a year to that 6th grade level. So, you know, differentiation is a hot buzz word that's used all the time, but when we are purposeful in the way that we are planning our lessons and monitoring student achievement and growth, we can actually accomplish these things. And it's too much for one person to do. That's why the PLC becomes so critical in helping us to meet the needs of all of our students. A PLC agenda, this is a sample that is from Dufour. So his is pretty simple. What do you need to bring to the meeting this time? So in this case, it's core standards, who are the members, and what is it our goal or outcome is. And then the meeting norms. Don't forget to spend time when you are starting a PLC, or even if you need to re-energize, to spend time developing those norms collaboratively and doing that team building. So his norms are pretty simple, and doesn't have to be anything hard or complex. It's not rocket science that we're doing here. Here's some more information. So if you're kind of struggling with this SMART goal assignment, you can look here, and there's some different kind of questions that people can ask that will help you to do that. But notice too, he always ends with create the agenda for your next PLC. So it's that cycle of an idea. Okay, we've talked about these questions, so we're not going to do that. But one of the things that to focus on is for our agendas. They should be given to all team members at least a day in advance. And then there's some hallmarks. It should include your goals, specific topics with times, meeting norms, and you can use the format that he has. It's not that you have to, but it is a good format. But particularly pay attention to the time part. So, an effective PLC oftentimes will assign every member a role. So you might have your leader, you might have your recorder, you might have your timekeeper. We always had someone that we designated as the devil's advocate because when we were all going, yeah, that's a great idea, we needed that one person to ask us those hard questions to see if really we needed to think some more about all this. Okay. And I see your questions. Yeah, I'll come back to those. So not going to ignore you guys. Minutes should be kept. They should be shared with all participants. They should also make sure that you copy whatever leadership structure, whether it's your assistant principal, your principal, or your coach. Ideally, I think, though, everything should go to the principal, at least as part of that distribution. So remember, there is a process. You've got to spend time pre-planning. Then your meetings, you need to do team building and develop some norms. Then you need to do some goal setting. Focus on those questions. Use that CIA, curriculum, instruction, and assessment triad. Make sure you stay focused. And of course, you should always be monitoring and evaluating. Okay? So again, I'm not going to read all this to you. You guys can read, but there is a framework. And there are 3 major components of a PLC. Or not components, but foundational principles, I guess, is probably the best word. How do you go about, establishing? These are some great guiding questions. And, I know what I've done, not that it's perfect or right, but we had a school mission, vision, values, and a motto. Then we did the same thing for each one of our departments, content departments or grade levels. Then we broke it down even further, and each PLC had the same things. And we made sure they were all aligned. So it wasn't like, we're over here talking about that we want our students to have great soft skills when they graduate, and that was never talked about in a department or grade level or in a PLC. But we broke it down, and our PLCs actually went through this process too, just to make sure we stayed on track. So alignment, alignment, alignment. Okay, so again, we've talked about this. We're not going to go through that. Again, just to remind you, there has to be some type of progress measure. And if you're wondering what PDSA, for us, that was just our little acronym for our professional development, because that was one way we measured progress. And then, of course, we had student outcomes and goals as well. And we also had those for teachers, quite frankly. So a lot of people say, okay, so great, you do these PLCs, but okay, that we kind of get that. But what other elements are absolutely essential? So I am a huge, huge, huge fan of coaching. And I know a lot of people have, instituted coaching models in their schools, or they have instructional coaches or whatever. In my world, anybody and everybody in a school should be coaching. So if you think about that traditional sort of observation, and I know none of you have ever had this experience. I'm sure this only happened to me. But I remember teaching, and my principal one time a year would pop in my room and sit down for maybe 30 minutes. He was supposed to stay 45. I don't think he ever actually stayed 45 minutes. And he did this checklist. And really and truly, it was all compliance. Were my bulletin boards up to date? Did I have any disruptive students and all that kind of stuff? And then he gave me written feedback, called me in, did a 5-minute evaluation. I signed it, and that was the end of that. Nobody else ever, ever, ever came in my classroom. Well, thankfully, we've gotten a lot better and smarter since I was a baby teacher. And hopefully, you're in a school where you are getting continual feedback on your teaching. Every teacher should be getting that. And like I said, in an ideal world, you're getting feedback from your peers, from a coach, from a specialist, from an assistant principal, from a principal, etc. So one of the things that we did that was, it was actually one of I had a team that I called the teacher leadership cadre, and I just gave them all the problems to solve. And they came up with this multi-tiered coaching approach that really became quite effective. So one of the things that they did was we had coaches for pretty much anything you could think of. So we had your peer coach, and everybody had one that was usually teaching the same content and or the same grade. Then we had a hallway coach. We were undergoing some pretty massive technology implementation pieces, and everybody was kind of on, and this is, keep in mind this was years ago, but everybody was on a different place in that continuum of technology. So we took, in every hallway for the school, we identified one teacher who was like really good at technology. So if you're in the middle of class and your computer crashes and you don't know what to do, you don't want to have to wait for the instructional technology people to come. You could just pop over and cover the tech coach, this class for 10, 15 minutes, and they can run in your class and fix that. We also did leader to teacher coaching. We did mentor coaching, all of those kind of things. But the idea is move away from that traditional evaluative observation into coaching. So it should be non-threatening. It should be just good feedback. It's more of a conversation, and it's strategic. Because again, I know you guys have never had principals that do this. But have you ever had that instance, or think about what it would be like? Somebody comes in your room and they give you a laundry list of things that you need to fix or do differently, or suggestions or ideas. You cannot do that effectively. So the whole idea of coaching is we're going to focus on one critical element in teaching. And those are decided collaboratively. So one that's often chosen might be student engagement. So I'm just going to come in your room, and I'm not going to stay very long. I'm going to be there at tops 10 minutes, and all I'm looking at is student engagement. And I'm going to maybe track, that, gosh, 100% of your students were engaged the whole time, or everybody was engaged except Johnny. That kind of stuff. And then we're just going to have a conversation about what I saw. We're going to come up with some ideas on how we can improve upon what it was, or if it's already awesome, how you can share that with other teachers that maybe are struggling. Then we're going to role play what that might look like. And then we're going to schedule time that I'm going to come back and look at it again. And this time, I'm not going to be there to even 10 minutes. I may just stand in the doorway, scan the room, or come in, walk around, and look at what students are doing, and I'm just going to give you a thumbs up, which means great. Or I might give you just, kind of a neutral sign, which is like it's better, but we still need to work on it. Or if I'm not seeing it, I usually don't give a hand signal. They just know no hand signal means, okay, we got to work on this, because I don't want the students to see me give a thumbs down. And you keep working on it, and so that you begin to get strategic growth. And whatever those, I wouldn't say hot button issues, but those pivotal issues that maybe the majority of your teachers need become the focus. And so what we did as well is we would differentiate those. So you may have a group that's working on student engagement. You may have another group that's working on accountable talk. You may have another set of teachers that really needs to focus on just the basics of classroom organization. So again, coaching becomes real. It's non-threatening. And there's been times too that as a coach, I would, if I saw a teacher they were close, but they just couldn't seem to get it, we had this sort of seamless transition where they would, I would kind of jump in and do that teachable moment or demonstrate a strategy. And then, I'd model it a couple times, and then the teacher would try it, and it became a very seamless sort of dance. That's the ideal way to do coaching, and that's what I mean when I talk about coaching in the moment. So again, thinking about this, in a traditional model, it's a one and done. Focuses on the teacher. And like I said, it usually is evaluative and results in your, whatever your rating is as a teacher. When you're doing the coaching model, like I said, it's very much focused on improvement, and we're not trying to overwhelm you. We're not trying to get you to fix 50 things. It's one thing. And it may be that you're almost there. We just want to make you a rock star, or it could be that you really don't know how to do a particular strategy or to, implement this in the classroom. But it's really about, like I said, growth and improvement. Okay. In a traditional observation, we all know this, it's 1 or 2 times a year. It is very judgmental, and whereas in coaching, we had a schedule that when I was the principal at MacArthur, and we had a very large school, I had a total of, including myself, there were 8 campus leaders, so myself, and then I had 7 assistant principals. We were in every classroom at least once or twice a week. It was that we were able to do that. And, when you're only in there 10 minutes and you're focusing on just one thing, guess what? You can actually do it. So when I meet with some high school principals on Monday, I'm going to push back on them about not being in classrooms a little bit. It also, when you're in classrooms frequently, you will begin to see, maybe even, like I said, if you're doing peer-to-peer observations or peer-to-peer coaching, you will see things that are needed in terms of professional development pretty quickly. One very specific example. So we didn't call them observations. We called them learning walks because we studied under Dr. Resnick at the University of Pittsburgh. But in our learning walks, one of the things we were noticing, so we were all out doing them, and then I would just do a debrief with my leadership team, my administrative team, usually like once a week. So we always had a Friday meeting, and that was one of the topics. And I'm like, okay, what are you noticing that, maybe is a problem that you're seeing across classrooms? And we realized pretty quickly nobody in our building knew how to teach vocabulary effectively. They were all doing that good old, the way I was taught, so on Monday, here's your vocabulary list. On Tuesday, for your homework, define all the words. On Wednesday, your homework is to use all the words in a sentence. And then on Friday, I'm going to give you a vocabulary quiz. Well, we all know that is not effective. So we decided to do that because that was highly ineffective, and we could see that in our achievement results. We pulled out, I don't even forget the name of it. It's by Marzano and Deborah Pickering, their vocabulary book. And that became a focus in our professional development with our teachers. We gave them new ways to teach this. So instead of the flavor of the month professional development plan, we were actually doing things that were targeted by our teachers as a need. Okay, types of coaching. This is the official stuff. There's facilitative, there's dialogical, and directive. Facilitative, I don't know when, in that case, you have a highly, highly skilled teacher. And so all you're doing is helping them to facilitate their thinking. They know the strategies. They know what to do. They just need somebody to kind of talk them through it. And so that they are thinking and they come up with, I need to do this differently, or I'm going to try this. Dialogical is primarily used maybe with inexperienced teachers or teachers who've never had any training in a specific area. So it is a coach and teacher thinking together, but the coach may need to share some of their expertise. And then directive is those teachers that need a lot of help. They may be your teachers that you're not sure are going to make it in the profession, or maybe you're not performing effectively. You might have to be very directive. I've had a few of those in my career that, we knew that reading the chapter and answering the questions at the end of the chapter was not the most effective teaching strategy, and we had a teacher who refused to do anything different. So the coach tried, gave them some direct things to do, and when that didn't work, that became my problem as a principal. But those are the three models of coaching, or types. Again, here's another one, and I like this particular chart because it kind of gives you just a one-word description of what each element needs to look like. So again, read that at your leisure. So again, what does effective coaching looks like? And, we've kind of talked about all of these, but it really is all about making teachers feel comfortable so that we are actually talking about instruction as opposed to all the other things that can occupy our minds and time. Okay, so again, in an ideal world, and that's why we always had a peer coach or a mentor coach for every teacher, because we did not want them to have that management responsibility. And so we were strategic in the sense of, if let's say as the principal, I'm evaluating Susie, I would not be her coach, okay? We would assign somebody else to be her coach, because you want that true free flow of ideas and the teacher to feel comfortable taking a risk. And they may not when they know their evaluation is tied to this, okay? Let's see. Another part of it too that I think a lot of people miss when they are doing observations and coaching is that if you're an effective coach, you really don't pay a whole lot of attention to what the teacher is doing. You're looking at the effect on the student. I'm a pretty good person who can do a great dog and pony show pretty much at the drop of a hat and look like I'm doing a really effective lesson. But if it's not impacting positively the student's learning, and if I'm not seeing that student engagement, then the best lecture I do, which I don't do lectures very often, but it really doesn't matter. And the other thing too is that feedback should be timely and specific. I know we're all busy, life happens, but in an ideal world, even if it's just, as the class is changing or the students are doing some independent work, I've done feedback right then, and just said, hey, you did really great at this. This was awesome. I think we need to work on this. Do you need me to model it real quick for you? And giving that teacher feedback, because there's nothing worse than waiting for feedback for weeks on end and you can't even remember what you said or did that day when they sit down with you. So if you want my favorite go-to person when it comes to coaching and best practices for teaching is definitely Robert Marzano. And so this is his website. He has some really awesome free tools. So, I would encourage you to look at those and maybe use them if you're in that position. And if you're not, maybe share with your campus leadership some ideas for coaching and how to make this all really effective. Okay, so peer coaching we've talked a little bit about. You'll notice what the principles are of it. So if you want to do a peer coaching model, make sure you build it on the idea that it is voluntary and confidential and it's reciprocal, that it's a two-way exchange. It's not a one-way street. And it really is looking to the future to help people improve. Here's some other resources that I think are pretty good. You can just do a Google search on these. But I really like the PLC guidebook from Crowley ISD in Texas. I've never worked there. I just happened to run across it. And then a couple of other websites. Because, you know, why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to? Okay. So any questions about that aspect? And then I'll get into talking about the assignments and answer these questions. Let me stop sharing my screen. Hang on. There we go. So I can see y'all. Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question on the SMART goal template.
Okay.
The step 3, when you ask for the highlight the district goals that align with the desired PLC, do you mean our standards that fit the goal that we're working with?
You could do that, or if your district, like when I was in Dallas and Irving, we had board goals that were posted and on our website, and so we always tried to make sure that we were lining up with those board goals. So you can either do like a district goal, a board goal, or you can even do it within a standard. It's really up to you. Because guys, remember, in these templates, there's not, I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm making you do a blow-off assignment when that's not true. There is not necessarily one right answer or 2 right answers or even 10 right answers. I want you to be familiar with these tools to be able to think through and process how you would do these kind of tasks. And then, quite frankly, I don't think Dallas ISD in all the years I was there ever actually used a template from anybody. We took somebody else's template and then we made it, customized it to ourselves. And ultimately, that's what you guys are going to do. You know, but I want these to be tools that you feel like it's not just a waste of time and energy, that you can at some point, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe in a future position, you've got some tools that give you a starting point so that you don't have to, like I said, it's hard to start from scratch. It's easier when you have a template or a model, and then you can customize that for your particular situation. And the other part of it is too, quite frankly, if you're using the same template, you know, 3 or 4 years in a row, it's sort of like that, you know, the times that I would go in and look at a teacher's lesson plans and they were laminated and they were starting to yellow, and I knew they hadn't actually updated that lesson plan since, you know, probably the turn of the century. We all know that's not effective. So it's the same kind of deal. Okay, so don't sweat it too much. Okay, so for this week, you have 3 things that are due. You have your reflective response, you have your PLC plan, which is, you know, basically a template, and then you have that writing SMART goals. Technically, it's due Sunday. I'm fine because that's a lot to do. I mean, I know you've had some time on some of these, but if you're struggling with the due date, as long as I have them by next Friday, it's fine. And I'm trying to grade every single day. So, you know, as things keep coming in, I'm trying to get them graded for you. But the other big reminder is don't forget the course closes on Saturday, March the 9th, not on Sunday. I know we're all used to that Sunday cycle, but they close the course on Saturday. So come 11:30 p.m. Saturday night on March the 9th, you will not be able to, at 11:31, get in the system and do anything. And then if for some reason something happens and you can't get everything in, text me on Saturday. And, you know, if you don't have it, I'll give it to you right now, my cell phone number. Just tell me who you are. Because a lot of people, I get texts all the time from students, which I'm fine with, but they don't tell me who they are, and I'm like, I don't know who you are and what you're talking about. And just let me know that something's happened, so we can talk about alternatives, you know, either giving you an incomplete or, you know, I'll go ahead and even though the course is closed, if you just can't get it to me till Sunday, that's fine. I still have time to grade it, that kind of thing. But my cell phone number, if you don't have it, it's area code 972-342-1609. So, okay, let me look at some of these questions over here. So, Andrea wants to know with this college split how that's going to affect the doctoral program. The good news is that they are making some really cool changes to the doctoral program. And I can't really tell you what they are yet because we just got the approval Friday for some of this, but I think it's going to be housed in the College of Education and Human Development instead of business. But it's a leadership studies doctoral program. It's not ed leadership. It's not business leadership. It's leadership. And I think they're looking at 3 possible strands. In fact, I'm just like blown away. It's going to be really cool. And they're about to get all that. Like I said, we just got approval for all the new curriculum and the changes, and they're going to eliminate the dissertation. And instead, it'll be a capstone project that's done with a group of peers in the doctoral program. So for those of us that have go dissertation, that's really exciting. So yeah, it's all good stuff. Don Harrison is leading that charge, and it's amazing. Okay, Lindsay, for the PLC assignment, do we put our specific team members? You can. I don't know who they are, so you can make up names, or you can just put their position. Like, it's 9th grade English 1 teacher, 10th grade English 2 teacher, 11th grade English teacher 1, 11th grade English teacher 2, or you can actually put a name. It doesn't matter to me. Okay. Oh yeah, Caitlin, that is a great point. Caitlin, if you're not looking at the chat, you wouldn't walk up to a student and tell them the 10 things they need to fix on their writing. So why would we do the same thing to teachers? I agree with you, but trust me, having supervised principals for a long, long time, I cannot tell you how many principals do that. They give you the laundry list, and I'm like, seriously? How are you going to monitor the laundry list and see if it actually changes? So break it down. And then Denise wants to know on the SMART Goal template, to list the data we used. You can, just in a cursory way, you don't have to give me, I don't know, like in Dallas when we would do our data packets for schools, it'd be honestly 60 pages long. I don't want that kind of detail, but at least give me either a short descriptor or maybe an example, just so I kind of know where you're coming from. Does that make sense? Anything else, guys?
I have a question about the SMART goal.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Mine is about, my whole thing is about annotating. That's where our district is going to, annotating lessons. So I really want to do it on that because we're starting it now and going into next year. I think it'll be, in my position, it'll be great for me to do now. But for the SMART goal for the students, the measurement, I'm not sure how I would do that because I thought about maybe comparing how they taught it last year, how the students understood it and got it to this year, but the students are different. So I'm not sure how I should word that.
Okay. Remember that ultimately everything comes down to the effect on the student.
Right. And that's the point of this.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about this, what change or what is it that you would expect to see students doing as the result of annotating lessons?
Okay.
And then try to quantify that. So for example, when we were moving real heavily into, I'm trying to think what one of the strategies was that we were implementing thinking maps district-wide. I don't know if y'all are familiar with thinking maps, but it's a graphic organizer system. It's awesome. If you don't know about it, do a Google search and get their stuff. But we were doing it district-wide, and so we were starting with our pre-K students all the way through grade 12. And again, it's a teacher behavior, but when we were thinking about our goals and objectives, we decided that the way we would do that was that we were going to look at how effectively students were able to incorporate these in their study plans, their assignments, etc. So we just kind of esoterically made up some goals that we wanted to see 90% of the students using one thinking map. This was the first year, one thinking map independently in an independent assignment. And then we kind of ramped it up and we said that was the first month. And by the next month, we wanted to be able to do 2. So you see where I'm headed with that? That just try to quantify it in what you want to see the students demonstrate or show. So that's your evidence of the learning. Okay. Anything else? You guys need me to walk you through anything? I'm going to post, I'll put it up as soon as we're done. I have an exemplar of a SMART goal assignment, so I'll put that in there so y'all can look at it and see. That might be helpful. Okay. Okay. Well, guys, you sure? Nothing else? I mean, I don't have a problem ending early. I don't want to keep you unnecessarily, but this is your last chance.
Tracy, what's the format for the final?
That would require me to remember what the final is. Hang on. It's been that kind of a day.
I hear you.
Oh, all I've done today is train Monica, which is great, but at the same time, I'm like brain dead. Okay, let me get to the final real quick here. Sorry, again, computer, come on. Okay, here it is. There we go. Sorry, it does this weird stuff. Okay, so you can do a PowerPoint, a video, or you can write a paper. There are 10 questions that you will answer, and they're really hard things like I wish my instructor had done more of, I wish my instructor had done less of, and the PowerPoint has to be 12 slides at least. The video, I think I said 8 to 10 minutes, but that may even be too long. And then the paper, because I'm really trying to discourage you from doing this, I said 5 pages on these topics. But you have 10 questions to answer, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I gave you all the hard stuff before the final. So, okay. And a reminder again, Saturday, March the 9th, not Sunday. Okay. Oh, thanks, Marty. That's so sweet. Well, you know, you guys have been awesome. I've so enjoyed working with you guys, and I really hope that we get to have some future classes together, even though I'm transitioning to work primarily in the School of Business, or eventually be the College of Business. You know, for a while I'll be working with the doctorate, but then I think that's probably going to transition too. But for now, you know, I'll still teach the 3 courses that I teach currently. So EDL 700, EDL 707, and EDL 710. So hopefully I will see you, but if there's anything I can ever do to help you or assist you or whatever, do not hesitate to call on me. You know, that's, even though I may not technically be your advisor anymore, you know, like I said, I'm not going anywhere, at least for a while. So thank you guys. It's been my pleasure. I've learned so much from you, and you know, just getting to be around such amazing teachers and leaders. I have so much hope for our future and our students. They're in great hands. So we'll end at that. Thank you guys. Have a great night. We will see you later.